I'm Zachary Hunter, and this is the Explain It to Me podcast. The EITM pod is about info without gatekeeping, encouraging curiosity, community, and education without drowning in jargon. If that interests you, please like, rate, and subscribe so I can continue making those videos. EITM is just getting started, and I have a lot of things I'd like to discuss and share together. So any help would be appreciated. Okay. So if I may, let me tell you a quick story. Depending on how you look at it, this is a story about the longest running science fiction TV show ever, a story about a geeky American kid in the 90s and early 2000s obsessed with a British show canceled when he was just 2 years old, or more importantly, it's about a time traveling alien called the Doctor. I was first introduced to Doctor Who in 1995 or 96. It is my favorite TV show of all time. By my count, I have seen, between the classic era of 1963 to 1989 and the revival of the show 2005 to present, over 750 episodes, plus a couple movies and almost all the official spin offs. In those years, without new episodes, I also read probably a couple dozen books, and over the years, I've seen plenty of interviews, documentaries, and even a biopic they made for the 50th anniversary of its creation about the early days behind the scenes. So, what I'm saying is that I had plenty of material for this episode, and writing it was a labor of love. Hopefully, this all makes sense, and by the end, turns out okay. So, so I don't overwhelm you, I will be breaking this up and hopefully spinning off some other Doctor Who info into separate future episodes, which I'll mention later. So, if you're interested, subscribe and stay tuned for those. Okay, let's start with the basics. Doctor Who is a TV show about a person called the Doctor who looks human and sounds British, at least to us. The Doctor has been played, by my count, either 14 or 18 different actors. See, when the Doctor dies, in certain circumstances, he can cheat death and cancellation of the show by changing the actor playing them. This process is called in the show regeneration, and with only one or two exceptions, depending on how you count, the result has been a dude. And except for the four who were Scottish, they've otherwise, as far as I can tell, all been English. And if you think about it, regeneration was and is a great way to keep the show going after your lead actor wants out. So, who is the Doctor? Well, one, as I said, they are an alien. And to keep it clear, I'll be using masculine pronouns like he a lot in the videos like this, unless I'm referring to the two female doctors specifically. But singular they is likely the better pronoun overall, now that the Doctor has been played by men and women. Anyway, okay. So the Doctor's an alien, and their name is the Doctor, not Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a question and the title of the show without the question mark. The Doctor is what they chose to be called back on their home planet of Gallifrey. So that's the name they use. Some fans might gatekeep over whether you call him the Doctor or just Doctor Who, but all I care about is you give the show a fair shot at winning you over. Info without gatekeeping. That's why I'm here. So, the Doctor's people from Gallifrey are called Time Lords and Time Ladies. Basically, the Gallifreyans were the first people, as far as we know, in the universe to figure out a way to master travel through time and space. This gave most of them a bit of an ego. This is a species so pretentious that some of its members use names like the Master, the Rani, which is a Sanskrit word meaning queen, as I understand it, or the Corsair. So, for most of the classic era of the show, Time Lords are generally shown above it all and against intervention in history, except when it serves their purposes. But in the post 2005 era, they are basically all dead after being wiped out in a war that was at least partly due to that hypocrisy. So that means the Doctor is effectively the last Time Lord. He travels through time and space in a ship called a TARDIS, which is dimensionally transcendental, aka bigger on the inside. That acronym, TARDIS, stands for Time and Relative Dimension in Space. Supposedly, it was coined by his granddaughter Susan, but most of the other Time Lords and ladies we see also use the term, so it obviously caught on. And yes, he had a granddaughter at the beginning of the show. We saw her in the 20th anniversary special back in '83, and it seems likely they are building her to bring her back in some way in 2024, but we really don't know much about her, except she was originally just the teenage looking girl that traveled with him and a couple of her 60s London school teachers who got taken along for the ride in the first story. That brings us to the idea of companions, sometimes called assistants. But friends or companions seems to work better now that they're more than just young pretty girl who screams at monster, man of action ready to fight said monster, or a foolish person who the Doctor gets to provide background exposition to. The Doctor has traveled in almost every story with a companion or picked one up in the story. In the classic era, there was only one exception, and there have only been a few special episodes, I, all outside normal seasons, where it wasn't the case in the 21st century stories either. These companions have ranged from a robot dog named K9 to a time lady called Romana to all sorts of humans from across time and space. Though usually from contemporary Britain, these companions usually serve as point of view or POV characters for the audience, especially when they first join the TARDIS and see it's bigger on the inside, or as eye candy for certain segments of the viewers, and or as plot relevant roles where there's some mystery or special destiny or surrounding them that will unfold as the story arc develops. That last one is much more a modern era type, but companions like Turlo and Ace from the classic era, that's fifth and seventh Doctor respectively, likely apply as well. See, the Doctor is incredibly old, so he feels like he needs friends and fresh eyes to keep perspectives on his journey and adventures, and also maybe to keep him in line. Let's get back to the TARDIS. Because the Doctor changes his face with regeneration and with his clothes and even some of his personality. The TARDIS, likewise, has changed over time, most notably the main control room as the seasons progressed. But the TARDIS was designed with a chameleon circuit that would blend in wherever the Time Lords would land, so it wouldn't disrupt history. In the Doctor's case, it got stuck, looking like this. It's a mid 20th century police box, i.e., a phone and storage booth for British cops. But the inside is still crazy big, even though the outside is only the size of a large phone booth. It will dematerialize somewhere, travel through space, time vortex, and rematerialize somewhere and someone else, ready to go on another adventure. All the while sticking out like a sore thumb because it's a giant blue box. See, the basic Doctor Who adventure goes like this: the Doctor shows up somewhere, and things go wrong. Or things are already bad, and he fixes it before running off again. He's ended wars, caused them as well. He's ensured the creation of life on Earth while fighting to prevent the theft of the Mona Lisa. That story is called City of Death, and it was written by Douglas Adams of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And it is an amazing story filmed on location in Paris. He's even, you find out, the Merlin in a different universe. Anyway, in all his adventures, though, he consistently places the fight against evil and the preservation of life as the highest calling. He is the doctor because he wants to save people and also to learn about the world, the universe, and to embrace what's good and beautiful in it. Or, sorry, in the words of the second doctor, quote, there are some corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things, things which act against everything we believe in. They must be fought. End quote. Similarly, as the 12th Doctor said before he regenerated, quote, never be cruel, never be cowardly, and never, ever eat pears. Remember, hate is always foolish, and love is always wise. Always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. And see there, that humanism, that romance, that ridiculousness to the point of campiness, all of that together is what makes this show so much more than just a sci-fi show to its fans like me. Yes, it is British and the budgets are sometimes terrible. The most famous villain of the show are human-sized salt shakers called Daleks that are basically robot space Nazis. It's kind of ridiculous in places. But it's also a show that is about fighting back against evil and nihilism in a way that most other shows don't. The Doctor's main weapon isn't a gun, it's a sonic screwdriver. He isn't a big macho hero, he's a doctor who wants to help. He loves Earth and humans, not just because our history is more interesting than other planets, but because he sees our promise as a species. This show is hopeful about humanity in a way that even Star Trek doesn't always meet. And I love Star Trek. Here's an example. The Ninth Doctor stood amidst the London Blitz and commented that, quote, right now, not very far from here, the German war machine is rolling up the map of Europe, country after country, falling like dominoes. Nothing can stop it. Nothing. Until one tiny, damp little island says, no, not here. A mouse in front of a lion. You're amazing, the lot of you. End quote. Sure, that's British propaganda, but it's also about the forces of hope and humanity being celebrated for their eventual victory over evil and despair at the exact moment it looks most dire. And that is why Doctor Who is important. See, there are so many terrible things out there scaring us or that we desperately need to fight against. But Doctor Who lets us imagine the impossible, that we won't get wiped out, but rather that if we work for it, we might survive even until the end of the universe. Not out of a power fantasy, but an indomitable hope. To use the words of comedian and big Doctor Who fan Craig Ferguson, quote, it's all about the triumph of intellect and romance over brute force and cynicism, end quote. What if you want to watch some of this show? What if you want to join in the fight for intellect and romance over brute force and cynicism? Where would you start? Well, that will be the subject of the next two videos. One on the new era, where you can pick it up, and which episodes to skip should you only want to dip your toe into the show. That sort of. And then another episode where I will walk you through the different eras and arcs of the original slash classic show, run of the show, so you can be prepared to check out those stories on Tubi, or if you have access to BBC iPlayer, the so-called Hooniverse section of that website. And I hope you check out those videos when I publish them. But again, this is just the start of the show, so please bear with me. I'm just starting to make episodes for the podcast and YouTube for EITM. If you like this, you see promise, or even if you just made it this far, please like, rate, and subscribe. We are all at the mercy of the algorithms, and by all accounts, it really helps. Also, if you're willing and able to help get this show going, I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/eitmpod. I'll put the link in the description/show notes. And if you want to help make EITM what I believe it can be, I would be extremely grateful. Either way, thanks, God bless, and best of luck out there. I hope to see you soon.